talk a little bit about the tension that Congress faces in having good tax policy with the dilemma they face just as the political process of, again, back to rewarding your friends and punishing your enemies. I mean, how does that play out, and what does the future hold for that?
Well, I no longer even divide the budget into the spending side and the tax side. I usually talk about it as the giveaway side and the takeaway side. So the giveaway side are the spending increases and the tax cuts, and the takeaway side are the spending cuts and the tax increases. And they essentially have to balance, and some of them take place automatically, like the fact that revenues grow with the economy we talked about before. And if spending doesn't grow automatically with the economy, then you could get balance. But among the items you might add to the spending are all of the tax subsidies. And what has happened over the years, particularly in the modern era, as more and more spending became transfers, is that also, say, fell in the jurisdiction of the Ways and Means Committee. It was not just in terms of defining the tax base, but they were doing credits, they were doing everything else. And to an economist, a transfer is just a negative tax, and a tax is a negative transfer. It's a little bit technical, but so the tax writing committees have gotten much into giveaways, as they don't want to be just the ones who tell the public what they have to pay. They want to be able to tell the public what they're giving to them, which is the same thing that goes on with the expenditure committees or the appropriations committees. So that's, I mean, again, that's the logic of being a member, right? You want to be operating on the giveaway side of the budget, and particularly because most now spending and even most tax subsidies are for individuals, as opposed to an earlier history when most of it involved things like, maybe tariffs as a way to collecting money and perhaps financing roads and infrastructure and things like that. But, they weren't individual transfers. So now we do a lot of individual transfers. People count up what they get, and we do distributional tables, probably misleadingly at times, that show who wins and loses, and the public really cares about that. So I don't know any solution to this issue other than, as I tried to get in briefly earlier, is to recognize the psychology of what goes on in the Congress, and then try to build good rules and structures around that. The if you want to, tying Ulysses to the mast so he doesn't follow the siren calls and the calls of the sirens, and take the ship to shipwreck. And in some sense, we've had that in other ways, not necessarily good rules. The balanced budget rule that Congress abided by for many years outside of emergency periods was that type of let's call it quasi-constitutional limitation. It wasn't in the Constitution, but people adhered to it enough that it worked to avoid the current problem. It created other problems. I'm not arguing that that's the right type of rule, but it shows how these types of structures work. And even Congress, if you think about it, it has all sorts of structures that it abides by and then doesn't abide by, like the fact that you can have a filibuster with unless you get a 60-vote majority in several cases. That's sort of a rule. It's that Congress could change that tomorrow. In fact, they did change it from 67 to 60, and then they changed it for things they would allow it for. They wouldn't, those are quasi-constitutional rules. And to me, we have to work on how to deal with some set of rules that say you can't be making promises for the long run. So in my book, I basically say there's just two things we have to agree on. The two general rules, how you specify them, enforce them is another question. The one general rule is you can't make promises for an eternity where the money's not there. You just can't do that. It doesn't work. And the second rule is you have to pay for what you're doing upfront, start paying for it upfront. So the current tax rate should be able to cover anything you've promised if you want to for the future. And I think that's where we have to go. The type of process rule we have to enact. It is, as I may have mentioned earlier, I think if we do that, we could actually show real gains in the future for what we can do and the things we would do, including just less spending on interest costs.